Capricorn, today's chart is not about a small mood shift. It's about a deeper rearrangement of what you share, what you create, and what you're willing to let be seen. The surprising part is that two very different pressures are working at once. One is pulling you into serious conversations about intimacy, money, and legacy, while the other is asking you to soften around pleasure, creativity, and the fear of looking foolish. If you felt like life is asking for both courage and restraint at the same time, that's exactly the point. The bigger picture. From a Western perspective, Pluto in Aquarius is spotlighting the territory of shared resources and binding agreements, which can include everything from sexual and financial entanglements to inheritance, property, and the long-term legacy you leave behind. Jupiter's new Leo transit of the 8th house adds a bigger, more expansive tone to that same area, which is why financial, business, and property matters may feel unusually open, lucrative, or at least ripe for serious discussion. This is the kind of sky that says, talk now, because what you negotiate now may shape the future. In Vedic tradition, the moon in Pisces tends to make the practical mind more inwardly receptive, and for you that can actually become a strength rather than a distraction. It can help you organize your life with more intuition than force, which is useful when the external weather is this intense. So while the Western lens emphasizes deep financial and psychological exchange, the Vedic-style emphasis here is on emotional clarity, right timing, and the ability to let insight guide structure. And here's where the chart becomes more personal. Chiron is stationing retrograde, and that means old tenderness around being seen, being praised, or being allowed to enjoy yourself may rise to the surface. In the language of the chart, the wounded healer is asking you to review where perfection has replaced play. That review begins in the space of creativity and pleasure, and then it later moves into home and emotional foundations. So this is not just about one isolated feeling. It's about the part of you that learned to stay composed when it really wanted to be free. Love. In relationships, the energy today may encourage honesty about who is carrying what. If you've been doing the emotional labor, the planning, the remembering, or the compromise without enough reciprocity, this is a day when that imbalance may become harder to ignore. That doesn't automatically mean confrontation. It often means a clearer conversation, especially with a partner, about what fairness actually looks like in practice. There's also a softer layer here that matters just as much. Chiron's retrograde can stir up sensitivity around romance, flirtation, and the fear of being laughed at or rejected, so you may notice yourself pulling back just as you begin to feel something real. But here's the twist. What looks like awkwardness may actually be the doorway to intimacy. If you can let the moment be imperfect, the connection often becomes more authentic. For some Capricorns, this is less about a dramatic relationship event and more about a subtle shift in tone. You may realize that affection does not need to be proven through effort alone. Sometimes the bravest thing is to let someone see you when you are not polished. That is where trust begins to deepen. Career. At work, the Pisces moon can help you become unusually focused and productive, especially when you stop trying to manage everything through sheer force of will. This is a day when quiet organization may work better than visible hustle. If you simplify your tasks, define your priorities, and move one step at a time, you may earn more respect than you expect. There is also financial potential tied to professional decisions, because the same 8th house territory that speaks to shared assets can also influence business arrangements, payouts, and negotiated gains. If a deal, a payment, or a resource-sharing conversation has been waiting for the right moment, today's chart suggests that the conversation itself may be the turning point. And if you've been considering a bigger business arrangement, this can be a useful time to ask sharper questions, not fewer. Perhaps you've noticed that people often rely on you to stabilize a situation after everyone else has gotten emotional. That role can be useful, but it can also become a trap if you stop asking whether the structure is actually fair. The chart today supports leadership, but not self-erasure. Lead, yes, but don't volunteer to hold the whole building by yourself. Money. This is one of the most important money days in the recent cycle, and the reason is simple. The chart is asking you to look directly at shared finances rather than treating them as background noise. That can include loans, repayments, taxes, inheritances, joint investments, property, or any arrangement where your resources are tied to someone else's. If something has felt vague, the astrology favors naming it. Any past loan you gave to a friend or acquaintance could also come back into focus, and a repayment may be more likely than usual. At the same time, Pluto in Aquarius insists that you think beyond the immediate transaction. What are you inheriting? What are you building? And what do you want your assets to mean in the long run? That's not just a money question, it's a values question. Here's the truth bomb in today's chart. For Capricorn, money is not just about earning more right now. It is about deciding what you are willing to merge with, what you are willing to keep separate, and what legacy you are quietly building every time you say yes or no. Most people think wealth is accumulation. Tate suggests that for you, wealth may actually be defined by clarity, health. This kind of astrology can create hidden tension in the body if you keep trying to stay perfectly composed while your deeper feelings are asking for release. You may notice that when you are under pressure, your first instinct is to tighten, control, and keep going. But the chart today asks you to consider a different response. Regulate first, then act. Take that slowly, because this is where the day gets more revealing. Chiron's retrograde can bring up old sensitivity around joy, creativity, and the feeling that you must earn relaxation before you deserve it. Many Capricorns with this pattern learn to turn rest into a performance review, and that habit can quietly drain energy. Let that sink in for a moment. If your nervous system believes fun has to be justified, then even pleasure starts to feel like work. The relief is that today's sky does not ask you to become someone else. It asks you to lower the stakes. Healthy meal, enough water, a little herbal tea, a slower pace, and a willingness to stop grading your own experience may help more than a grand fix. And if you're drawn to traditional remedies, some Vedic practitioners may recommend Saturn-related remedies, such as specific gemstones or mantras for individuals whose birth charts support them. This is not universal advice. Gemstone prescription in Vedic astrology requires personal chart analysis. General color associations are safer, and wearing violet or deep purple can be a simple, tradition-friendly way to work with the day without overcomplicating it. Home and family. Later in the day, the chart turns the spotlight toward home, family, and the emotional architecture beneath everything else. Chiron's retrograde eventually moves into Aries and your domestic fourth house, which can bring old family sensitivities or private insecurities back into view, but not to punish you. More often, it appears so that you can see where the polished exterior has been hiding a very human need for safety. This is also where the Western and Vedic threads start to speak to each other. The Western lens shows a review of private foundations and emotional vulnerability, while the moon in Pisces adds a need for calm, fluid organization. Together, they suggest that your environment matters more than usual today. Cluttered room, a tense conversation, or a family dynamic that has gone unspoken may affect your energy more strongly than you realize. The good news is that you do not need a perfect home to feel at home in yourself. A small reset can change the tone of the day, clearing one surface, answering one message honestly, or choosing not to absorb someone else's stress as if it were your job. If a conversation with family or a close friend feels delicate, lead with steadiness rather than control. That will take you farther. Travel in spirit. If you can delay a trip, the chart suggests that may be wise, because the energy may not flow as smoothly as you'd like. That doesn't mean travel is impossible. It simply means the weather may be better for planning than for forcing movement. Travel today may ask for extra patience, better timing, and fewer assumptions. Spiritually, this is a day for returning to the unfinished idea, the half-tried pleasure, the conversation you did not quite have the courage to finish. There's a quiet wisdom in that. You do not always need a new path. Sometimes you need to walk the old one without pretending you're above your own longing. That is where growth gets real. You may also find that friends and family become surprisingly supportive once you stop carrying everything alone. The Pisces moon can make companionship feel restorative, especially when you allow yourself to be around people who do not ask you to perform competence every second. If you've been feeling overly self-contained, this is a good day to let one trusted person in. Lucky signs. Your lucky color today is violet, which fits the day's quieter spiritual and emotional tone. The most favorable window appears between 10 a.m. and 11:15 a.m., when momentum and clarity may meet more naturally. The numbers 4, 58, and 92 carry a supportive feel for the day, especially if you need a simple anchor for decisions or timing. Today's guidance. Capricorn, today asks for depth without drama, honesty without self-punishment, and pleasure without performance. Talk about the money, clarify the relationship, slow down the body, and let the unfinished creative impulse exist before you try to perfect it. If you remember only one thing, remember this. The sky is not asking you to become more serious. It is asking you to become more precise about where your energy, your intimacy, and your loyalty truly belong. Handle the conversation, take the breath, and let the day reveal what is actually worth carrying.